Attention! The video you're about to watch is based on actual events and contains highly sensitive information. About 2.5 years ago, my 23-year-old son committed suicide, ending his own life. Hi, my name is Dr. Michael J. Duckett, and the unbelievable story you're about to hear is 100% true. He didn't do it because he was psychotic or because he was addicted to some sort of drugs or alcohol. It happened because he was extremely depressed, causing me to fall into my own deep depression because of my grief. As time went on, my brain began to degenerate from the depression. An early stage of a severe memory condition, which at that time hadn't been diagnosed, caused me to become panicked and confused, coming home that day to find my son laying lifeless next to a 12-gauge shotgun was one of the most disturbing and horrifying experiences in my life, something that still gives me nightmares to this day. And it's also what sent me on a completely unforeseen 2-year-long journey through the darkest depths of the multi-billion-dollar corporate medicine universe, a journey that opened my eyes to the disturbing, destructive, greedy, and eventually lethal practices of the pharmaceutical companies, and that would eventually lead to the discovery of a completely natural, 100% effective way that supports the healthy aging process related to memory, no matter whether the one suffering was in the very late stages of such a disease, at initial onset, or simply at risk of age-related memory loss. It's a method created with the help of extensive research by some of the greatest minds in the field of neuroscience. It's already proven to be effective, and all it takes is the destruction of a simple toxic chemical in your brain, something that, until lately, was not very well understood by the scientific world, but that has now been identified as the leading cause of almost all memory-related issues. Now, in the following 5 minutes, I'll tell you exactly what this memory-destroying neuroagent is. I'll give you all of the research to support my claims, and I'll even show you the simple, inexpensive steps you can take right now to protect your brain health. But if you're ready to see just how simple it is for you, your parents, your grandparents, or any other loved one to manage your memory conditions and other memory-related illnesses, it's extremely important that you do follow along with me to the very end. Because even as you watch this, Big Pharma wants to take this presentation off the internet, and they're horrified of what will happen if you find out what I'm about to share with you inside this video. Of course, honestly, they should be frightened. They'll lose billions of dollars if you and I can work together to spread this message to our friends and family. In fact, they're already starting to take a huge loss, now that many Americans just like you have used this presentation to learn the truth about memory-related conditions while acquiring the clear details of how they can completely manage the symptoms of those effects. They don't want there to be more people out there saying things like, "When I first learned about the Super Memory Formula program and it worked to manage the symptoms of memory conditions, I was in complete disbelief. I thought to myself that if something was this incredible, I would have definitely heard about it before. After watching your presentation, though, and seeing all the scientific backing this program has, I eventually thought about it again and decided to let my grandfather give this a try. He's been diagnosed with a severe memory condition for several years now. Well, Dr. Michael J. Duckett, I really can't believe how it's helped him manage his symptoms. He doesn't repeat himself anymore, or tells the same stories again and again. He's also unbelievably smart and focused, and can remember conversations we had days, weeks, and even months ago with crystal clear precision. It's given my family our grandfather back, and I'll be forever thankful for it. Brian S. of Grand Rapids, Michigan. 6 months ago, I was told by doctors I had an early onset of a severe memory condition, and even though it wasn't affecting my daily activities yet, I was still really worried of losing my memory, forgetting everything, and having to rely on someone else to take care of me. My brother recommended the Super Memory Formula program to me, and I really had nothing to lose by using it. I can't thank God enough I did. My memory is sharp and I feel great. I'm not showing any signs of my memory condition anymore, and my doctor even reversed his diagnosis, saying I'm no longer even at risk of memory conditions. This is amazing. I can't thank you enough. Fred Cunningham of Tampa, Florida. One of the most difficult things I've ever experienced in life is watching my husband suffer from memory loss. It wasn't bad at first, but over the years it progressively got worse. It was so bad he wasn't able to think on his own. It was really scary watching him go through this. He just wasn't the same person, and we were scared he was going to put his life in danger by making the wrong decisions. We were almost left with no choice but to move him to assisted living. That's before I found your Super Memory Formula program. Within a week of David, my husband, following it, things have completely changed. I feel like my husband is back and has a second chance in life. I honestly feel like someone turned back the clock to almost 20 years ago. He knows who I am. His funny personality is back. We can have long conversation now that he actually remembers. And the best part, we're in the process of moving him out of assisted living. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Lisa R. of Spokane, Washington. Those are just a few of the real-life stories from people just like you who have already used the Super Memory Formula program I'm about to share with you. Now, I'll give you all of the details on how it works in just a second. But before I do, I know you're probably curious who I am and how I discovered a way that could manage the symptoms of memory loss even in the most severe of cases. As I just mentioned, my name is Dr. Michael J. Duckett. I'm 43 years old and I live in Atlanta, Georgia. Up until a few years ago, I'd never actually thought about memory conditions or other memory-impairing illnesses. I'd always thought that when people's memories started to diminish, it was only because they were getting old. And even though I was starting to become progressively forgetful, misplacing my car keys more and more often, forgetting exact dates, repeating my favorite stories with increasing regularity, I just chalked it up to being not as young as I used to be. A few years ago, however, this is when my life was completely changed and turned upside down. The date was November 13th, 2014, and I came home from work just like it was any other day. But today, something just didn't feel right. That morning at 7:30 a.m., I left for work just as I did for the last 3 years. You see, it was my normal routine leaving for work at 7:30, since I always had to be at work by 8 a.m. My son was always home when I left because his job required him to work from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. He was not a morning person, so he found a job where it could accommodate his sleeping schedule. I walked into his room that morning and told him have a good day, and I loved him. He was half asleep and mumbled as he always does, "I love you too." Little did I know that would be the last time I would ever hear his voice. That night when I got off work, I headed home. It was around 6 p.m., and just as I pulled up to my driveway, my heart completely sank. My son's car was still in the driveway, and he was supposed to start work at 2 p.m. I walked right up to the front door and walked in. As I entered the kitchen and set my car keys down, I could hear the sound of the television coming from his room. I thought maybe my son was sick and stayed home for the day. But what happened next was one of the most alarming and scary moments I've ever experienced, and something that still haunts me to this day. I walked into my son's room and saw his lifeless body laying in a pool of blood. My son had ended his life. I fell into a deep depression because of my grief. As time went on, my brain began to degenerate from the depression. My memory recall diminished to where I couldn't remember conversations I was having within 1 to 2 minutes after having them. I would find myself lost driving down previously known roads and streets. One night I found myself in the middle of nowhere and didn't have my cell phone with me. I forgot it at home. I didn't know where I was, and there wasn't anyone in sight. Now, after serving patients with severe memory conditions, I knew the steps needed to get checked myself. They performed cognitive tests on me for several hours. The results were hard to hear, but given what had happened to me, I was not surprised. I had severe memory loss, and the doctor said there was no way to reverse this. He filled out several prescriptions for medications and said to take them. I was traumatized. My son had always been my hero, and now he was completely gone. All I had left was memories that hopefully wouldn't fade from my mind. I thought about the cases of severe memory conditions I'd seen in other older people I knew, how they would ask their children what their names were, how they'd repeat the same sentences again and again, almost as if the conversation was mechanical, not coming from a thinking, feeling human being. I thought about my own wife, how she was about to lose her husband, how I wouldn't be there as her life progressed. I just feared I wouldn't remember her. I never thought this would be me someday, how I'd experience the same thing, whether from severe memory conditions or dementia. And I decided to do everything in my power to help fight off my own condition. I didn't care if it was irreversible. I promised myself that I would find some way to at least help slow down my deteriorating brain before it's too late, which is why that very same week I began spending every extra hour I could scouring through academic journals, medical publications, university library records, and online health forums. I wanted to understand what severe memory conditions were, what caused it, and how scientists were trying to manage the symptoms of it. This is the main reason why I have always worked and wanted to work in this industry. But what I quickly learned is that there didn't seem to be any straightforward solution. In fact, the more I revealed, the more confused I felt. There were so many different theories and proposed solutions out there, but none of them offered a way to manage the symptoms. There were theories out there to eat certain foods, take omega-3 oils, stuff like that. When I actually looked at the research, however, I was discouraged to see that, while some foods had been linked to a short-term boost in memory, almost none of them were actually scientifically proven to support the healthy aging process related to memory. I also found a lot of research about the effects of different common medications, but the more I uncovered about these medications, the more disturbed I became. Apparently, all of the memory condition drugs that were available were filled with chemicals that had been derived from petroleum oils, chlorides, and flammable gas. Let's look at donepezil, for example, which is the leading memory condition drug on the market. Well, chemically, take a look at what this medication is made of. Plus minus 2,3-dihydro-5,6-dimethoxy-2,1-phenyl-methyl-1H-indene-1-one hydrochloride. The fact that it's extremely hard to even try and pronounce any of these chemicals should tell you everything you need to know about the cleanliness of the drug right in the title. Additionally, even though these toxins were being marketed to unwary memory condition patients and their loved ones, none of them had shown any concrete proof that it improves memory. Instead, the drug manufacturers said they helped with behavioral symptoms, and the warning label for every single one of these drugs said that they would lose their effectiveness after using them over and over again. Honestly, the more I learned, the more I felt like quitting, just walking away to the tragic reality that I was going to lose my mind for good. I thought about how the best thing would probably be to just start trying to spend as much time with my wife as possible while I was still present and aware. To even get a tape recorder and